Hi there, and welcome to Ben's Voice Narrative. Right, this channel is Ben's Voice Narrative, whereas this episode you're watching is tagged Ben's English Laboratory or Ben's English Lab in short. It's called English Lab because this is more like a linguistic laboratory where we get to dissect linguistic concept for anyone who wants to apply them in real life situation or for candidates or students who are taking examination. Perhaps this is the first time I've come across my face. I am Benjamin Adebayo, but people in my community like to call me Prolific Ben. So if that's okay by you, you also might want to stick with that. So again, welcome to Ben's English Lab. And today we have a very interesting and very substantial topic to look at in summary writing. So today's topic is summary writing. Now, summary writing is a very interesting topic. Not just interesting, I think the right word to use now is that it's a very important, it's a substantial topic for any candidate or students who wishes to take WAEC examination, the NECO, GCE, SSC, what have you. So all of these examination bodies take summary writing very seriously when it comes to testing students, and that is why you have to pay close attention to today's class because it will help you rake in a good marks on their examination situation. Right. Let me also add that this topic is very important because under exam situation, this is one of the few topics that attract the most marks, just like the comprehension passage. I think after comprehension passages, summary writing is the next question that often attracts the most, the largest marks in English language on their exam situation. Right. So I'm saying this to draw your attention to how important or significant today's topic is. Right. So what are our objectives for today's lesson? First of all, remember that our topic is summary writing. Okay. So what are our lesson objectives for today's class? So first of all, we want to understand the meaning of summary writing. Okay, and perhaps another word or another name for summary writing. And secondly, we want to look at the rules to apply when you are to take examinations on summary writing. So we have about 10 rules to look at in this class. And the third and final objective for this class is that we'll be applying these rules in taking or attempting examination questions, summary questions basically. Right, so let's dive right into the class. So now back to objective number one, which is understanding the meaning of summary writing. So what is summary? Summary writing can be described as a short, precise, concise, or abridged version or shortened version of a long passage. Now what that means is that you have a long passage or a lengthy passage, as the case might be. You have a long passage, and then when you're trying to break down or reduce, shorten, or be more precise about this passage, what you're doing is summary writing, because summary writing involves the concise breakdown, the shortening, the reduction of a long passage into something smaller. Now, take for example, you have a passage of about 30 pages. You have a passage of about 30 pages, and someone says to you, reduce this lengthy passage, this long passage of 3 pages into 3 sentences or 2 sentences. What you're doing otherwise is you are doing summary writing, because summary writing requires reducing, abridging, shortening a passage, a long passage, into something very short, something very precise, something very concise. In other words, an abridged version of a long passage is what you call summary. Now, another word for summary writing is synopsis writing. Synopsis writing, the same synopsis you have in your literature, writing of synopsis, like writing a descriptive summary of something, writing a short form of a passage. So basically, summary writing involves you as a writer, you as a candidate or student on the examination situation, removing, squeezing out, sieving out a relevant point from a given passage and giving an account of such passage in your own words. And in this case, you have to take out these relevant points, and what you have left is the relevant point from the main point in a given passage. And you now trying to replicate, paraphrase this passage in your own words. Now, it's very important that you understand the power of paraphrasing when it comes to summary writing, because what you basically do in summary writing is paraphrasing, reframing or rephrasing passages or ideas. And that is, of course, the first technique you need to understand or master when it comes to summary writing. The art of paraphrasing or rewriting a passage. All right, so that said, I hope now you understood what summary writing is about. Remember, a summary is a short, an abridged, a concise, a precise version of the long passage. And this involves you taking away a relevant point from the main passage and then rewriting this passage in your own words. This, of course, is what summary writing is about. So now let's proceed to the second objective of this class, which is examining the rules to reply when answering questions on summary. So what is rule number 1? The first rule says you must first of all understand the passage you are given before you attempt answering the questions on them. I take that again. The first rule says that you must understand the passage you are given before you attempt answering the questions on it. Understanding, of course, is called reading and comprehension. Reading and comprehension, reading and understanding. If you don't comprehend or if you don't understand the passage you're given, then it will be impossible for you to answer the summary questions as expected. All right. So what comes first in the rule is understanding. So the first rule says that you must read and understand the passage you're given before you attempt to answer the questions on it. Understanding is very key in everything we do in life, okay? And when it comes to passages, the first thing you must achieve as a student or as a candidate under examination situation is the power of understanding. You must read, digest the passage, dissect it for understanding first of all, because that is all that you need to simplify the questions given and to be able to answer it as expected. Okay, so rule number 1 says you should read and understand the passage given. Now rule number 2. So what is rule number 2? Rule number 2 states that as a candidate or as a student answering summary questions, you must avoid what is called mindless lifting of ideas. As a candidate taking examination questions on summary writing, you must avoid mindless lifting of sentences, of clauses, of phrases from the given passage in your answers. So what I mean is you don't lift sentences, phrases, or clauses directly from the passage into your answer. If you do that, you will be penalized. You must remember that the first R you need to master in summary writing is the ability to paraphrase, to rephrase, to rewrite things, ideas in your own way, in your own words, in your own ideas. So the rule is saying that you should not lift answers directly from the passage. You don't copy answers verbatim from the given passage. You don't. So let's say that the right answer in the passage is the government didn't do enough for the people. And the question says, what didn't the government do? And you're saying the government didn't do enough for the people. In that wise, you're lifting mindlessly the answers from the passage. You're lifting directly from the passage, and that is not allowed in summary writing. Simply you can say, the government fell short in its responsibility to its citizens. Or you say that the government fell short in its responsibility to its citizen. It's as simple as that. Just find a way to paraphrase, to rewrite the answer you have in the passage in your own words. So rule number 1 says you should read and understand the passage before attempting the questions. Rule number 2 says that you should avoid mindless lifting of ideas, because when you do that, you get penalized, and you'll be losing marks when you get penalized anyways. And it goes without saying that being penalized in this case means you are losing precious marks. Okay, now let's go to rule number 3. Rule number 3 is about how you present your answers. And so it says that you should present your answers in short, simple sentences. Now, what this means is you can afford to present your answers in phrases, clauses, or compound, complex sentences. Short, simple sentences. Avoid at all costs present your answers in incomplete sentences, in other words. So that is basically what rule number 3 is saying, that you should flee from the temptation to present your answers in incomplete sentences or in phrases or clauses. And more importantly, you should avoid present your answers in compound sentences or complex sentences or compound complex sentences. Remember, the rule states you should present your answer in short, simple sentences. So that, of course, is rule number 3. Now, what is rule number 4? Rule number 4 says that you should avoid using examples or illustrations after each sentence, after each answer that you give. So simply, what this is saying that you should avoid at all costs the temptation to give examples or illustrations when you are answering summary questions. In place of examples, you can rather have what is called general terms. For example, you have a passage that states, the politician promised to provide pipe-borne water, good road, stable electricity, and many more. And now the question states, in one sentence, summarize what the politician promised the people. So instead of you saying that the politician promised to provide pipe-borne water, electricity, good this and this and this for the people, you simply say the politician promised to provide social amenities for the people. Now, social amenities is a general term for those exemplified things that the politician promised to provide for the people. Remember, number 4 states that you should avoid using examples, giving examples or illustrations after every given sentence, after every given answer. Is that taken? So now let's go to rule number 5. Rule number 5 is about the source of your answers. So the rule states that you should make sure that your answers are according to the passage. So this involves you avoiding what is called extemporaneous information. Information, ideas that are outside of the passage must be avoided when giving your answers. So let's say for example that you have a passage that focuses on the factors responsible for why students fail the WAEC examination in Nigeria. Imagine the question saying that in three sentences, one for each, summarize the factors responsible for why students fail WAEC examination in Nigeria. That's what the question says, and of course you are what the passage states now. So I know that you know that one of the factors responsible for why students fail examination all over the place or around the world is lack of enough preparation on the part of the students. So if this factor is missing in the given passage, therefore it means that you have no business representing or writing that factor in your answer. So this rule number 5 is saying that you should avoid what is called extemporaneous information. Whatever information is outside of the passage, keep it outside of the passage. Keep it outside of your answer. Simply go to the passage, look at what is being discussed in there, and then bring out your answer, paraphrase, rewrite to your own words, and put in there. Whatever factor, doesn't matter how important such factors are or such answers are, if they aren't mentioned in the passage, you must avoid them in your answer. So your answers have to be according to the points given or raised in the passage. Right, so that is that about rule number 5. Now, before we proceed to the last 5 rules, I'd like you to please click on the subscription button if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet. Remember, subscription is free. By subscribing to this channel, YouTube simply notifies you every time I upload a video like this. So please kindly show support by clicking on the subscription button right under this video. Thank you very much. So now let's go to rule number 6. Rule number 6 says that you should write or present your answers in order of appearance in the passage. So take for example, you have a passage that lists about 6, 7, 8 points, and the question says in five sentences, one for each, summarize the factors responsible for so and so. Now you have to list your answer in order of appearance in the passage. Right. So what this means is your answers must be chronological according to what you have in the passage. It must be either in ascending order or descending order, but most of the time it has to be in ascending order. You start from the first, so you're required to start listing from the first to the next, to the next, and to the next in succession that way. All right, so you have to list your answers in order of appearance in the given passage. Now, rule number 7. What does rule number 7 say? So rule number 7 states that you should limit your answers to the number of points in the question. So sometimes you might have a passage where you have more points than you're required to list in their answers. Do not, in that situation, merge points. Do not combine points all in the bid to exhaust the points in the given passage. You have to restrict yourself, limit yourself to the number of points you're asked to list in the question. If a passage asks about 10 points, for example, and the question says list 5 factors or 5 points, you have to limit yourself to just 5 points without having to cram points into the order in a way that you're not beginning to have compound sentences, complex sentences, or compound complex sentences. Remember, you have to limit yourself, restrict yourself to the number of points you're asked in the question. Okay, so that is that about rule number 7. Rule number 8. Rule number 8 states that you should avoid presenting your answer in flowery expression, in flowery language. Your answer should be in plain, simple language. Summary writing is not a place where you try to impress people with vocabularies or with how versed you are in the English language. It's about how plainly you can present your answer. That's what fetches you the mark that you desire. So do not try to use figures of speech in the presentation of your answers, or you're trying to speak in elevated or write in elevated languages, or in elevated language, Do not write in elevated language. Try as much as you can to be concise, to be precise, to be plain and simple in the way you present your answers. Don't try to impress. Don't try to be flowery in the presentation of your answers. So now let's go to rule number 9. So penultimately, we go to rule number 9. Rule number 9 is very, very important, and you need to pay close attention to this. Now, the rule states that you should, as much as you can, avoid presenting your answer in passive voice. So, in other words, your answers should be written in active voice. What is an active voice? An active voice is an expression or a sentence in which the subject occupies the first position. So active voice is a sentence or a linguistic expression in which the subject occupies the first position, or in which the subject performs an action. So for example, or instead of having answers like pipe-borne water was provided by the new politician, you simply say the new politician provided pipe-borne water, not pipe-borne water was provided. So present your answer this way under summary questions makes you lose marks. Remember, you have to present your answer in active voice. Passive voice is a linguistic expression in which the object of the sentence occupies the first position and the subject occupies the last position. And of course, you know that ordering is wrong when it comes to answering summary questions. Your answers again must be presented in active voice. And remember, an active voice is a sentence in which the subject, which is the performer of an action, occupies the first position. So finally, let's go to the last rule. Rule number 10. Rule number 10 calls for balancing. Can somebody repeat that after me? Can you repeat that? Say balancing. Yeah, it calls for balancing. So rule number 10 comes to life in situations where you're asked to make comparison, right? In this case, the rule says that you must avoid being lopsided, being one-sided in the presentation of your answer. Now, what do I mean by balancing? So, for example, if a question says, in 5 sentences, one for each, state why students in their cities perform better than students in the rural areas. Now, in the presentation of your answers, you don't just say students in the city are exposed to libraries. No, you don't answer summary questions that way when it comes to balancing comparison. So in this case, you say that students in the cities have access to textbooks, while students in the village or in the rural areas do not have access to textbooks. So you have to balance their equation, the comparison, such that you mention the A side and then you mention the B side, contrasting both as you do so. So remember, you can't afford to be lopsided or one-sided when answering questions that require you to make comparison between certain phenomena. Alright, so with that, we have come to the end of the rules on summary writing. And of course, we're diving right away to the application of these rules. But before then, let's have a recap of these rules. Rule number 1 requires you to first read, digest, dissect, and understand the passage you're given. Rule number 2 requires you to avoid mindless lifting of answers from the passage. That is, you must avoid lifting answers verbatim from the passage. Rule number 3 requires you to present your answers in simple, short sentences or in short, simple sentences. Do not write in incomplete sentences, okay? Do not write in phrases or clauses or compound sentences or compound complete sentences. Your answers must be presented in short, simple sentences. Rule number 4 requires you not to write examples or illustrations at the end of every given sentence. However, general terms can be used in place of examples when presenting your answers. Rule number 5, your answer should be according to the passage. There is no room for extemporaneous information, extra information or content in the passage. You must avoid them. However relevant these points are to the concept being discussed in the passage, but if they aren't included in the passage, please do not present them in your answer. Rule number 6 requires that you present your answers in order of appearance in the passage, chronologically, in chronological order, in order of appearance from the passage. It means your listing process should be in accordance with what you have in the passage. Rule number 7 requires you to limit yourself to the required number of points without having to cram points together, just so you can exhaust the points listed in the passage. Limit yourself to the number of points required in the question. Rule number 8, your answer must be presented in plain language. Avoid presenting your answer in flowery or elevated language. Penultimately, rule number 9 states that you should write in active voice and not in passive voice. And finally, rule number 10 calls for balancing when a question requires you to make comparison between certain phenomena. Okay, now before we go to application of these rules, let me point out something really important, and that is the method of the presentation of ideas, of your answers rather, the method of answer presentation. There are basically 2 ways you can present your answers when it comes to giving summary answers, okay? First method is known as preamble method. Preamble method, and the second method, well, the second method is known as sentence method. A preamble method is an introduction to your answers. Preambles are often framed from the questions and must be grammatically correct when read with each of their answers. Okay, for example, a question says, in 3 sentences, 1 for each, state the factors responsible for the frequent changes in policy. Here is a preamble. The factors responsible for the frequent changes in policy are, did you gather? The factors responsible for the frequent changes in policy are, then you have your colon afterwards. However, when the question requires you to summarize your answer in 1 sentence, the preamble and the answer should be combined, e.g., now let's look at this question. In 1 sentence, summarize the factor responsible for the frequent change in policy. Your answer should be, the factor responsible for the frequent change in policy is the frequent change of government. When you adopt the preamble method, each answer should begin with small letter. This is because each of your answers is a continuation of your preamble. Therefore, there should be a full stop at the end of every answer. Very important. Every answer in a summary writing exercise must contain a full stop, because that means we've come to the end of that sentence, the end of that point listed. So let's look at more examples under the preamble method. The problems of the poor man are: 1. Inadequate clothing. 2. Homelessness. Full stop after homelessness, full stop after inadequate clothing. When you say the problems of the poor man are, you have the you have the colon, then underneath you have your answers presented either in Roman numerals. You have 1, inadequate clothing, or you have homelessness. Okay. Remember, each of your answers under the preamble method should start with initial small letter. Okay, so you can have the problems of the poor man are inadequate clothing with capital letter inadequate clothing, capital letter homelessness, H. That is wrong. It has to be small letter I, inadequate clothing, small letter I in, small letter H in homelessness. Okay, so the reason is initial letters for the answers are capitalized. The preamble already has initial capitalization. That is where you have the problems of the poor man are, capital letter T, for the article THE. The problems of the poor man are. As much as the preamble sentence carries capital letter, your answers should be or should begin in small letters. Okay, so the second method of answer presentation is the sentence method. In the sentence method, each answer is presented in a simple sentence, just as we've listed in the rule as given before. Avoid presenting your answers in compound or complex sentences. When you adopt this method, each answer should begin with a capital letter. This is because each of the answers forms a sentence of its own. There should also be a full stop at the end of each answer. E.g., one of the problems of the poor man is inadequate clothing. One of the problems of the poor man is inadequate clothing, full stop. Number 2, another problem is homelessness, or you say another problem of the poor man is homelessness, full stop. So each of those answers should begin with capital letter. So saying things like one of his problem is inadequate clothing is wrong with small letter I, wrong. Or another problem is homelessness with capital letter with small letter A is wrong. So presenting your answer in small letter under the sentence method is wrong. Okay. Now quickly, there's something important you need to know. When it comes to answer presentation, you can either adopt the numbering method or the paragraphing method when presenting your answers. In other words, if you choose to number your answers, do not paragraph. And if you choose to adopt the paragraphing method, do not number your answers. Okay. So, and this of course is applicable under the preamble method where you have to have the preamble. So if you have the preamble and you have the factors responsible for the poor man's problems, or even numbering in Roman numerals, you don't have to paragraph your answer. Simply go to the margin, put your Roman numerals, and then put your answer. The 5 factors responsible for the poor man's problems are Roman figure 1, that's from the margin, your answer. Roman figure 2 from the margin, your answer. Roman figure 3, your answer from the margin. Roman figure 4, your answer from the margin. Roman figure 5, your answer from the margin. And number 5, Roman figure 5, your answer starting from the margin. But if you want to write in paragraphing method, you have your preamble. The 5 factors responsible for the poor man's problems are paragraph. Underneath of your preamble, you have paragraph without numbering, inadequate planning. 2, you're not numbering this time, you're not numbering. Underneath paragraph 2, so and so is as simple as that. So these are the 2 methods of answer presentation, the preamble method and or the sentence presentation method. And remember, you can use any of this method in your answer presentation. It doesn't matter what you use. And I can tell you for a fact that the preamble method can be more complex than the sentence presentation style. What I often say to my students is that they go for their sentence presentation method because it's very straightforward, because it's very simple, straightforward, unlike the preamble method where you have other sub presentation styles such as their paragraphing method or the numbering style or the numbering method. Okay. So that way we have come to the end of this class. I would have loved to give practical examples, but this video will be getting too long. But not to worry, I'll be leaving for you at the end of this video a passage to be summarized so you to apply the rules, the 10 rules we've looked at to answer the summary passage. So thank you very much for sticking to the end of this video. You're really the champ. Thank you so much once again. Remember to click on the subscription button if you haven't. Until next time, keep writing right, keep speaking right. Bye for now.